What would you like me to drink?
You wouldn't dare. It's too American.
But I love America. Whiskey and soda and rock and roll.
In 1960, Sophia Loren delivered a performance that would make history. Two women earned her the first Academy Award ever given for a foreign language film, solidifying her place among the greatest actresses of all time. But behind that triumph was a woman whose journey from poverty to stardom was more dramatic than any movie script. From a childhood marked by war and hunger to a forbidden love that defied the Vatican, her life was filled with struggles, scandal, and an unshakable determination to succeed. This is the secret life of Sophia Loren from two women. From poverty to pageants. Sofia Costanza Brigida Villani Ciccolone was born on September 20th, 1934, at the Clinica Regina Margherita in Rome. Her mother, Romilda Villani, had once dreamed of becoming an actress herself. In fact, bearing an uncanny resemblance to Greta Garbo, she'd been offered a trip to the United States to serve as Garbo's body double, but her own mother refused to let her go, and that dream died before it could begin. Romilda never married Sophia's father, Riccardo Ciccolone. He was a construction engineer from a respectable family, but he was already married to another woman and refused to marry her despite fathering two daughters with her. Years later, Sophia would say he was a pig who couldn't be bothered to support his children or acknowledge them properly. The rejection and the stigma of illegitimacy would mark Sophia's childhood. When Sophia was still an infant, Romilda took her back to her hometown of Pozzuoli, just outside Naples on the Bay of Naples. One travel guide described Pozzuoli as perhaps the most squalid city in Italy. Sophia grew up in her grandparents' home, sharing a bedroom with 8 other people. Money was scarce. Food was scarcer. Her wet nurse later remembered her as the ugliest child she'd ever seen in her life, a harsh assessment for someone who would become one of the most beautiful women in history. Then came World War II. Pozzuoli's harbor and munitions plant made it a frequent target for Allied bombing raids. Sophia remembered the terror of those raids, the sound of sirens, running for shelters. During one attack, as she ran for safety, shrapnel struck her in the chin. She carried the scar for the rest of her life, though makeup and camera angles would usually hide it. The family survived on whatever they could find or barter. They lived through the German occupation, the liberation, and the chaos that followed. Those years taught Sophia what hunger felt like, what fear tasted like, what it meant to have nothing. That understanding would serve her well years later when she played a mother, struggling to protect her daughter during wartime in Two Women. In 1950, when Sophia was 15, her mother decided to take her and her younger sister Maria to Rome. They would try to make their living as actresses, or at least as extras or models. It was a desperate plan, but Pozzuoli offered no future. Rome at least offered hope. Sophia landed her first role as an extra in the 1951 Mervyn LeRoy film Quo Vadis, one of the big Hollywood productions filmed at Cinecittà Studios. The pay was minimal, but she was in a movie. She also found work as a model for Fumetti, Italian publications that resembled comic books but used photographs instead of illustrations. The work wasn't glamorous, but it paid. More importantly, Sophia caught the attention of someone who would change her life forever. The man who created Sophia Loren. Carlo Fortunato. Pietro Ponti was born on December 11, 1912, in Magenta, Lombardy. He'd studied law at the University of Milan and joined his father's law firm, but his real interest was film. By the time he met Sofia Ciccolone in 1950, he was already an established producer who'd worked with some of Italy's greatest directors. Ponti was serving as a judge at a beauty contest in Rome when he saw her. She was just 16 years old. He was 37, nearly 22 years older, married with 2 children, but he saw something in this awkward teenager from Pozzuoli. It wasn't just beauty. Plenty of beautiful girls entered beauty contests. It was something else, a quality he couldn't quite name, but knew would translate on camera. He began casting her in small roles. In 1952, his friend Goffredo Lombardo, head of production at Titanus Studios, suggested changing her name. They wanted something that sounded sophisticated, international. They settled on Sophia Loren, a twist on the name of Swedish actress Märta Thoren. Sofia Ciccolone became Sophia Loren, and a star was born. Ponti wasn't just her producer. He became her mentor, shaping every aspect of her career and her image. He taught her how to walk, how to speak, how to move for the camera. He chose her roles, negotiated her contracts, built her reputation, and somewhere along the way, they fell in love. The problem was that that Ponti was still married. Divorce was illegal in Italy, forbidden by the Catholic Church, which held enormous power over the country's laws. Ponti and his wife Giuliana had been estranged for years, living separate lives, but the law didn't care. They were married, and that was that. For years, Ponti and Sophia kept their relationship as discreet as possible. She was his protege, his discovery, his star. That was the official story. Behind the scenes, they were building a life together, even though they couldn't legally have one. The Hollywood years. In 1953, Sophia starred in Aida, lip-syncing to Renata Tebaldi's operatic vocals in the title role. Critics took notice. This wasn't just another pretty face. This was someone who could act, who could command the screen with presence and intelligence. The following year, she appeared in The Gold of Naples, directed by Vittorio De Sica. De Sica was one of the giants of Italian neorealism, a director known for finding truth in poverty and struggle. He saw in Sophia someone who understood the characters he wanted to portray, people fighting to survive, to maintain dignity in impossible circumstances. It was the beginning of a collaboration that would define both their careers. By 1956, Sophia had signed a 5-picture contract with Paramount Pictures. Hollywood wanted her, and Ponti made sure she got the best deals, the biggest co-stars, the widest exposure. She starred opposite Cary Grant and Frank Sinatra in The Pride and the Passion in 1957. Grant fell completely in love with her during filming. He wanted to marry her, wanted her to leave Ponti and become his wife. The affair between Grant and Sophia was real, intense, and complicated. Grant was one of the biggest stars in the world, charming and sophisticated. For a girl from Pozzuoli, it must have been intoxicating. But Sophia chose Ponti. Years later, she would say that Grant was wonderful, that she cared for him deeply, but that Ponti was her life, her partner, the man who'd believed in her when she had nothing. She and Grant made another film together, Houseboat, in 1958. The script had originally been written by Grant's wife, Betsy Drake, as a vehicle for herself and her husband. But after Grant began his affair with Sophia, he arranged for her to replace Drake in the role. The script was rewritten, and Drake asked not to be credited. The whole situation was awkward, made worse because the affair with Sophia had ended badly by then, leaving both of them hurt and Grant's marriage in shambles. Through all this, Ponti was working to solve their legal problems. In 1957, his lawyers obtained a Mexican divorce from his first wife. Ponti and Sophia were then married by proxy in Mexico, with 2 male attorneys standing in for them at the ceremony. They found out they were married when a Society columnist broke the news, but the Italian government didn't recognize the Mexican divorce or the Mexican marriage. They charged Ponti with bigamy and Sophia with concubinage, being a married man's kept woman. If they returned to Italy, they could be arrested. Sophia later said she was being threatened with excommunication, with everlasting fire, and for what? She'd fallen in love with a man whose own marriage had ended long before. They wanted to be married, to have children, to live openly. They'd done the best the law allowed, but they were being called public sinners. They lived in exile for years, staying in France, in England, in the United States. When they did return to Italy, it was secretly, briefly, always aware they could be arrested. The situation was absurd, painful, and deeply unfair. 2 Women and Vindication. In 1960, Vittorio De Sica was preparing to film La Chiara, based on Alberto Moravia's novel about a widow and her teenage daughter fleeing Allied bombing during World War II. The role of Cecilia, the mother, was originally intended for Anna Magnani, one of Italy's greatest actresses. Ponti suggested that Sophia could play Magnani's daughter. Magnani, however, wasn't pleased with that idea. She reportedly made pointed comments about the impropriety of having the physically developed Sophia play her daughter. The implication was clear. Sophia looked too mature, too sensual, too much like the symbol she'd become. De Sica reconsidered. What if Sophia played the mother instead? Sophia had doubts. She was only 25 years old, playing a woman with a teenage daughter. She worried she couldn't convey the weariness, the desperation, the fierce maternal protectiveness the role required. But De Sica believed in her. More than that, he knew her. He knew she'd grown up poor, had lived through the war, had felt hunger and fear. She understood Cecilia in ways no comfortable actress ever could. They filmed 2 Women, La Chiara Chiara in Italian in 1960. The production was difficult, emotionally draining. The film dealt with brutal subject matter, including a scene where Cicera and her daughter are assaulted by soldiers. It wasn't glamorous work. It was raw, honest, painful filmmaking. When the film premiered at the 1961 Cannes Film Festival, the response was overwhelming. Sophia won the Best Actress award at Cannes. Critics who had dismissed her as merely beautiful were forced to acknowledge her as a serious actress. Vincent Canby of the New York Times later wrote that Two Women was the film that forever separated Sophia from the mob, that opened eyes so that never again would people look upon her work, even in bad films, as perfunctory. In 1962, Sophia became the first actress ever to win an Academy Award for a non-English language performance. She won Best Actress for Two Women. She also won the BAFTA Award, the New York Film Critics Award, and 22 other international awards. It was complete vindication, not just of her talent, but of everything she and Ponti had endured. Cary Grant called her in Rome to congratulate her. She didn't attend the Oscar ceremony, claiming she was afraid of fainting if she had to walk to the stage. The truth was probably more complicated. She and Ponti were still fighting legal battles, still unable to live normally in Italy, but Grant accepted the award on her behalf, and the moment was hers. Marriage and motherhood. The legal situation finally resolved in 1966. Ponti and Sophia became French citizens, and under French law, they could marry legally. On April 9, 1966, they were married in Sèvres, France. The marriage certificate was personally signed by Prime Minister Georges Pompidou. After years of exile, scandal, and legal warfare, they were finally, officially, legally husband and wife. Sophia has said that her only regret is that she never got to wear a white wedding dress. That was the dream of her life, she said, and it's still inside her. Both her marriages to Ponti, the Mexican proxy ceremony in 1957 and the French ceremony in 1966, were quiet, practical affairs. There was no fairy tale wedding, no moment of being a bride in white. For a woman who'd grown up reading romance and watching movies, that absence hurt. But what she wanted more than a white dress was children. By the late 1960s, Sophia's desire to have children had become an obsession. She wanted to be a mother with an intensity that consumed her, but it wasn't easy. She suffered multiple miscarriages, each one devastating. Her life as a star felt like nothing, she later wrote, compared with the happiness of new mothers she'd glimpsed at the hospital. In 1968, after bed rest and careful medical supervision, Sophia gave birth to Carlo Ponti Jr. on December 29th. She'd been nervous about the C-section, unable to sleep the night before. She hadn't wanted her pregnancy to end, she wrote later. But when Carlo arrived safely, it was the happiest moment of her life. 5 years later, on January 6, 1973, their second son Eduardo was born. Sophia stepped back from filmmaking to focus on being a mother. She'd spent her whole life performing, being scrutinized, being Sophia Loren the star. Now she wanted to be Sophia, wife and mother. She turned down major roles during this period. She was offered the part of Alexis Carrington in Dynasty in 1981 and turned it down. She was set to star in Falcon Crest in 1984, but negotiations fell through at the last minute, and the role went to Gina Lollobrigida instead. Sophia didn't seem to mind. Her children were young. They needed her more than Hollywood did. Collaborations with Marcello. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Sophia's most frequent co-star was Marcello Mastroianni, Italy's other great international star. They made 14 films together over more than 20 years, developing a chemistry that was warm, playful, and deeply affectionate. They were never romantically involved, despite persistent rumors. Instead, they were friends who understood each other completely. Their first major collaboration after Two Women was Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow in 1963, directed by Vittorio De Sica. The film consisted of 3 separate stories, each showcasing a different facet of their talents. In one segment, Sophia performed a striptease for Mastroianni that became one of the most famous scenes in Italian cinema. The film won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Film. The following year, they reunited for Marriage Italian Style, again directed by De Sica. Sophia played a prostitute who tricks Mastroianni's character into marrying her. The role earned Sophia her second Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. She didn't win. Julie Andrews won for Mary Poppins, but the nomination confirmed that Two Women hadn't been a fluke. Sophia Loren was a genuine actress, not just a former sex symbol. In 1970, they made Sunflower, a film where Sophia's character searches for her husband who lost his memory during the war. The film didn't achieve the success of their earlier collaborations, but critics praised their work. Then, in 1977, they made A Special Day with director Ettore Scola. Both were past their glamorous prime, playing ordinary people caught in extraordinary circumstances. The film was quiet, intimate, and devastating. It stands as one of their finest performances together. The later years. As the 1980s began, Sophia's priorities had shifted. Her sons were still young, and she wanted to be present in their lives in ways her own mother hadn't always been able to be. In 1980, she played herself and her mother in a television biopic based on A.E. Hotchner's biography, Sophia Loren, Living and Loving Her Own Story. It was her way of controlling the narrative, of telling her own story before others told it for her. In 1982, Sophia made headlines for a different reason. She was arrested in Italy and spent 17 days in prison on tax evasion charges. Sophia insisted her accountant had made an error on her tax return, that she hadn't knowingly done anything wrong. The Italian government wasn't interested in explanations. She served her time, and the matter was eventually resolved, though a separate decades-long dispute over her 1974 taxes continued until 2013, when Italy's Supreme Court finally cleared her. The scandal didn't harm her reputation significantly. Italians saw her as one of their own, a woman from poverty who'd risen to the top and never forgotten where she came from. If anything, the prison sentence humanized her, made her more relatable. Through the 1990s and early 2000s, Sophia worked sporadically. She appeared in Prêt-à-Porter, 1994, directed by Robert Altman. She starred in Grumpy Old Men, 1995, playing a sexy divorcee who seduces Walter Matthau. She worked on smaller independent films, often with her son Edoardo, who'd followed his father into filmmaking as a director and producer. In 2007, Carlo Ponti died at age 94. He'd been hospitalized in Geneva with pulmonary complications. Sophia was at his bedside when he passed. They'd been together for 56 years, through scandal, exile, triumph, and everything in between. In interviews after his death, Sophia spoke about the loneliness, the hole his absence left in her life. She said she missed him every day, that the pain didn't get easier, that you never get over losing someone you loved that deeply. The legacy. Sophia Loren is now 90 years old. She's made over 100 films spanning 7 decades. She's won 2 Academy Awards, the competitive Oscar for 2 women, and an honorary Oscar in 1991, recognizing her lifetime achievements. She's won 5 Golden Globe Awards, a Grammy, a BAFTA, and countless other honors. In 1999, the American Film Institute listed her among the 25 greatest female screen legends of all time. In 2020, she appeared in The Life Ahead, directed by her son, Edoardo. At 86, she played a Holocaust survivor and former prostitute who cares for the children of streetwalkers. Critics praised her performance, noting that she was still taking risks, still challenging herself, still finding new depths to explore. Her 2 sons have made their own mark. Carlo Jr. is an acclaimed conductor who's worked with orchestras around the world. Eduardo is a successful director and producer who frequently collaborates with his mother. Carlo married violinist Andrea Mazzaros Ponti and has 2 children. Eduardo married actress Sasha Alexander in 2007, and they have 2 children. Sophia has 4 grandchildren, and has said that being surrounded by great love every day is what matters most. But beyond the awards and the family, Sophia Loren's legacy is about transformation. She took the cards she was dealt: illegitimacy, poverty, war, a body that some saw as too sensual to be taken seriously, and turned them into strengths. She refused to be limited by other people's expectations. When Hollywood wanted her to be just a sex symbol, she insisted on being an actress. When the Italian government tried to punish her for falling in love, she endured it and won. When motherhood called, she stepped away from fame without hesitation. The secret life of Sophia Loren wasn't really secret at all. It was lived openly, defiantly, on her own terms. 2 women gave the world proof that the beautiful girl from Pozzuoli was one of the greatest actresses of her generation. Everything that came after was simply confirmation of what Vittorio De Sica had seen in her all along. truth, strength, and an unshakable understanding of what it means to survive. At 90, Sophia Loren remains an icon. Her face is instantly recognizable. Her films are still watched and studied. Young actresses still cite her as an inspiration. But more than the fame or the awards, Sophia represents something essential about resilience and authenticity. She never pretended to be anything other than who she was, a girl from the slums of Pozzuoli who became a star, who loved a man society said she couldn't love, who fought for everything she achieved. The journey from Sophia Ciccolone to Sophia Loren is one of the great transformation stories in cinema history. Two Women was the film that made the world take her seriously, but it was her life that gave the performance its power. She'd lived through war, poverty, hunger, and fear. She knew what it meant to protect what you love, to fight for survival, to refuse to be defeated. That knowledge is in every frame of Two Women, and in every performance she's given since. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more fascinating stories.